Hey y'all, welcome back to Tactical Alliance Gaming. Now, in this video, we're going to go over the new champs for patch 4.30, right? All right, cool. Now, I'm assuming it's going to drop Monday with the new fusion, since Hernn Dig is one of the new champs for 4.30. As soon as it drops, we are going to get a video recorded. We're going to get that bad boy up for you guys right away. But first, you know what? Let's go over these new champs. And let's check these guys out, see what we got. And yeah, we'll go for there. All right. So, what do we got? All right. Well, first off, it comes out the highlights for 4.30. We did do this in another video, which I will link right up here at the top for you. So we're just going to skip right down to the new champs because that's what we're really focused on in this video. So Hernn Dig, we kind of went over him a little bit in our Hernn Dig video again, which I will link here. And just keep linking it. But so Hernn Dig, we do know a little bit more about him. He is a attack-based magic affinity dwarf Lego. We went over his skills, but to rehash on that, attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn, and decreases the cooldown of his stasis strike skill by 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy on his A1 lethal lust. His A2, Arcane Tempest, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff and a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. That is on a 4-turn cooldown, bookable down to 3 turns. Okay, so his A3, which is stasis strike, this is the one that gets reduced by 2 turns if his A1 kills somebody. Okay, so his basic is attacks one enemy, fully depletes target's turn meter. Ooh, yay, yay, yay. Ascended, because that's what we care about, right? Because nobody's leaving him unascended. Attacks one enemy, fully depletes target's turn meter. Will also attack all enemies if the first attack is critical. This AoE attack has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. Will also place an HP burn debuff for 2 turns after the attack on the enemies whose turn meters are below 30%. Now that is on a 6-turn cooldown. When booked, it goes down to a 4-turn cooldown. With that A1 reducing it by 2 turns, that puts it down to a 2-turn cooldown. That is freaking nuts. All right. His passive stayed fills his champion's turn meter by 10% every time they're hit. Occurs once per hit. Also fills this champion's turn meter by 20% whenever an ally dies. And then he's got an ally attack in arena battles by 35%. So definitely interesting. That aura is new. We did not know that until this was released. The next one, new Lego, Shadowkin Legendary, Magic Affinity Support Champion. Lady Kimmy. A1, Lady's Touch, attacks one enemy, then attacks the enemy with the highest turn meter. Will attack the same enemy twice if the initial target also has the highest turn meter. The second hit has a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. And that is bookable to 25%. Okay. Her A2, Flurry of Petals, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff and a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 50% on a 4-turn cooldown, 3-turn when booked, and a bookable to 100% chance of decreasing the turn meter. Freaking sweet. A3, Spirit Flux, removes 1 random buff from each enemy, then has a 75% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns on enemies who have buffs removed. Also fills the turn meters of all allies by 15% and places a 50% increased accuracy buff and a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. 6-turn cooldown, bookable to 4. Okay. Also bookable to 100% chance of removing a debuff or a buff from each enemy. Her passive, Impious, whenever this champion places a debuff on an enemy, also decreases that enemy's turn meter by 5% for each debuff placed. Whenever this champion or an ally receives a debuff, fills their turn meter by 5% for each debuff received. And she has a speed aura in Doom Tower battles by 30%. Wow, there's a lot going on in that kit. A lot of turn meter on that. Next one, another Shadowkin legendary, Force Affinity attack base legendary. Nobel. A1, Smell Fear, attacks one enemy, 40% chance of decreasing the duration of 2 random buffs on the target by 1 turn. If the target is under a Fear or True Fear debuff, has a 65% chance of decreasing the duration of all the target's buffs by 1 turn instead. Okay, so that's cool. I'm assuming there's a Fear or True Fear going on at some point in this guy's kit. It's A2, Harbinger. Attacks one enemy, will ignore 30% of the target's defense. Fills this champion's turn meter by 25% after the attack. If the target is under a Fear or True Fear debuff, decreases the cooldown of the Dismay skill by 1 turn. So is A3. Bookable two turns. Okay, his A3, Dismay. Attacks all enemies, 75% chance of decreasing each enemy's turn meter by 20%. If there are any enemies under Fear or True Fear debuffs, will also fill this champion's turn meter by the amount those enemies lose on a 3-turn cooldown. And bookable to 100% chance. There's got to be a Fear, True Fear in this guy's kit. His passive, Desolation, whenever an enemy's turn meter is fully depleted by any champion, has a 50% chance of placing a True Fear debuff on that enemy for 1 turn. Now that is bookable to a 75% chance. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a few books coming out in these new champions they're bringing in. So that's the new legendaries. There's 3 new Legos coming. Here is we'll start with the new epic Siege Hulk, Magic Affinity, Orgrim Tribes. Okay, attack-based champion, battering ram on an A1. Attacks one enemy, decreases the target's turn meter by 50% if the target is under a decreased defense debuff or a decreased speed debuff. Okay. A2, Thrashing Fit. Places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Okay. Bookable to a 3-turn cooldown. With a 100% chance of placing the decreased defense. Okay, so that's an AoE decreased defense for Orgrim Tribes, which is kind of freaking awesome. A3, Siegebreaker. We're not even going to read the basic because everybody's going to send these guys. Places a 30% increased crit rate buff and a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks one enemy. Has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff on the target for 2 turns. 3-turn cooldown when booked, and it does book to a 100% chance of placing the decreased speed. He has an aura of ally crit rate in Doom Tower by 24%. Okay, not bad. There's a little bit going, some AoE decreased defense going on there for Orgrim Tribes. Not bad, definitely needed. Gorey. Okay, next epic, Gorey, Spirit Affinity, attack-based champion from the Shadowkin faction. There's a shock, but we knew we were going to have a lot more of these guys coming out. On an A1, Cold Comfort, attacks one enemy 2 times. Extra hit if the target is under a freeze debuff. Heals this champion by 10% of the damage inflicted. On an A2, Frost Jutsu. Attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on a 4-turn cooldown. It does book to a 100% chance with a 3-turn cooldown. I'm not a big fan of the at random stuff. I don't like my attacks and stuff being so reliant on RNG. Granted, it's raid, it's always RNG, but I like having a better than just at random. But, you know, whatever. Still a freeze if you don't have one. There you go. He might be able to help out with that. His A3, Frostbreaker, attacks one enemy, will ignore increased defense and shield debuffs, will also ignore 50% of the target's defense if they are under a freeze debuff. Places a counterattack buff and 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. That is a 5-turn cooldown. It books down to 3 turns. Okay, his passive is Dignity, counterattacks with the Cold Comfort skill whenever an enemy places a stun, sleep, freeze, provoke, fear, or true fear debuff on an ally. Wow. He might be good against Tormund in the arena. We'll kind of have to wait and see. If we get our hands on a dupe version of him, because I'm going for the fusion. If we do get our hands on a dupe version, we just might have to level him up and try that out. All right. Scathix, Void support champ from Lizardmen. Okay. Attacks one enemy, 30% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed for 2 turns. On his A1, bookable to 50% chance on leg rack. His A2, Transfer Rush, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of stealing 1 random buff from each enemy. That does book to 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. His A3, Scales of the Ages, removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a block debuffs buff and a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The shield buff is equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. It's a 6-turn cooldown, bookable to 4. Wow, Lizardman coming out with some shields, some freaking cleanse. Look at that. His passive, Last Grasp, places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn whenever their HP drops below 30%. That is a 6-turn cooldown. And his aura, he does have ally resistance in all battles by 40. Okay. Hofferes the Tusked. He's a freaking hippo. He's a Skinwalker support champion, Force Affinity, okay? A1, Burly Bash, attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 10% chance of placing a stun for 1 turn. Bookable to 20, 30%. Bookable to 30%. A2, War Whoop, places a 50% increased attack buff and a 30% increased crit rate buff on all allies for 2 turns. 5-turn cooldown, bookable down to 3. A3, Eternal War, revives 2 random allies with 50% HP and fills their turn meters by 50%. After the revival, places a 25% strengthened buff on all allies for 2 turns. 7-turn cooldown, bookable down to 5. But Skinwalkers with the revive, finally. And ally resistance in all battles by 40. Okay, now we're getting into the rares. We're not really going to go through the rares. Honestly, it just... Yeah, it's not... We're not going to go through the rares. But they are going to add a few more changes here. They are going to be doing Champion Index will display the champion names under their avatar, making it easier to navigate. Sort by rank will become the default filter for the pre-battle champion selection screen. Champion rarity filter will become available in the champion collection, tavern, and the champion selection screen. An option to keep auto battle on by default will be added to all arena and clan boss battles. It will appear as a checkbox on the champion selection screen. Players of level 50 and higher will get a button that allows them to access the last played campaign location with a single tap. That should make accessing XP farming locations much faster. And total team power for the arena, both classic and tag team, will be displayed in the battle and battle log tabs. So just some little quality of life stuff there. That's kind of cool. I'm actually curious about a couple of these. Siege Hulk, definitely I'm curious about. And as well as Hofferes is a flippin' hippo, okay? He's a hippo. I'm definitely curious about them. Hernn Dig, I am also curious about. I am going to try and go for it. They are doing Playtime Rewards update. When the update hits, again, assuming Monday, nothing for sure yet. Playtime Rewards will increase with your player level. So there is a short list here. Level 1 to 30 staying the same. 31 to 50. 5 minutes, you're going to 12,000 silver, up from 7,500. 40 minutes, 1 greater arcane potion, up from 1 lesser arcane. 90 minutes, 30,000 silver, up from 20,000. Level 50 and above, at 5 minutes, it's 20,000 silver. 40 minutes, 2 greater arcanes. 90 minutes, 55,000 silver. So they are making some changes there. Also, you're going to have skill instruction. You're going to be able to do your skills, save teams, all that. So anyway, guys, that is the new champions. All right, kind of awesome. I'm super looking forward to it. So by all means, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, share the video, and let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on some of the new champions? Are there any you think are looking pretty good, or you think they're all just food champs? Anyway, guys, let me know, and I'll catch you in a video next time.